when they demonstrated, and normally when you think of demonstrations, you think of anger, right? And but I mean, he wasn't angry. He'd been tortured after he was demonstrating. All these young monks and nuns, because they see it's wrong. They want Tibet back for Tibet because they feel that's valid. But they weren't angry. I said to him, "Do you ever get angry?" And he kind of laughed at me, and he said, "What do you mean angry? What for? You know?" They don't have anger. It's kind of interesting. It's curious to think that, because they know why it's happened, but they do everything they can to try and change it. And that's why the Dalai Lama, I think, is a great example. We'd love to stick him up on the sky, think he's a holy guy. But I mean, for 60 years he hasn't stopped. We all can see, for 60 years he hasn't stopped trying to change Tibet. He never gives up, diplomatically, socially, politically, in every imaginable way. But he never gets angry. He cracks jokes about the Chinese, It's like he doesn't get angry with the communists. And that's what's incredible, because he has a view of karma. He doesn't talk about that in the West, he just talks very practically. But he never gives up trying to help the situation. Do you understand? But not out of anger and rage and self-pity and not fair, because they know why it's happening, but that's why in our own lives you can see the suffering happening. You've got cancer, that's the fruit of some action, but you try to heal it. Of course you do. It doesn't become, it's not a question of like either you accept it or you rage against it. Not like that. Chris, you had a question.
Confession.
Oh, confession. Oh, all right.
Thousands of ants.
Oh, you did, okay.
That's the other thing is I like fishing. I have liked fishing.
I understand.
And in recent years, I find ethically I have a problem with fishing.
Yes.
So there's sport fishing where you just catch
That's right.
and put it back.
That's right.
There's fishing where you go fishing and
yes.
you take the fish home.
And you take it, yes, that's right.
So if I can go fishing,
yes.
catch the fish and take
and
it
how do you catch the fish?
With a big nasty hook.
You see, that's a bit cruel. But that's a bit cruel, isn't it?
Eat it.
I know.
Does that justify me going fishing?
It's not a question of justify, you see. It's like saying if I eat if I eat this poison food with a bit of sugar in it, and I won't notice the result. It's not like that. It's a natural law. So everything's to do with your motivation. And then you've got to really question. I mean, you mightn't be killing the fish, which is better than nothing, but you're putting this hook in his poor mouth. Yeah. It's a bit cruel, isn't it?
Very cruel. So
then think about it, Chris.
What about the ants?
Well then, you got to. That's why I keep going back to the principle. The principle is of the law of karma. Buddha says it's a natural law, like botany and gravity and mathematics and everything else. That an action that's motivated by the wish to harm or by attachment, and fishing's attachment. Killing ants is motivation by anger, isn't it? Aversion. How disgusting. How dare they harm my house, so we slaughter them. Then that's an action that'll sow seeds in your mind that if you don't pull those seeds out, and certainly you don't stop killing, will ripen as future suffering for you. So that's up to you. That's how we have to, that's the principle. So then we become accountable then. We think about it. So that's why also I think in our culture, we're very intelligent. We're very creative. So this is why as a Buddhist you'd start with the thought, when you say become a serious, let's say you become a Buddhist, like in my case I became a Buddhist, I committed myself to being a Buddhist, and I took Buddhist vows. And so one of the first vow I've taken is to not kill. So that means I've made a decision back when that I'm going to be determined not to kill. So then I know that situations might arise when I might be feeling compelled that I'll have to kill. But this is the point that Buddhism would say, if I make this strong determination and take a vow not to kill, and every day reiterate that commitment and purify the killing that I've done already, and we'll talk about that, then that strengthens the likelihood that I will never have to choose to kill. And I can say in 42 years I've never yet met a situation in which I've been forced to kill, because the very keeping of the vow and the determination of the mind to not do it guides you and also even protects you, I would say. I feel that. So you've first got to think about it, the logic of this law, if it's so, and then see if we can decide, okay. And then I think if once you've decided I will not kill, then we're going to be very creative in finding methods to avoid killing. Because we tend to think in our modern world, because creatures, we don't value them, you kill them, get rid of them. But there's other ways to get rid of ants. There's other ways to get rid of mice. Not just to slaughter them all, Might take more effort. But there's ways of doing it if we understand the habits of ants, and we can learn. But you've got to start with the will, the wish. You will have to want to decide I will not kill for your own sake. Not, of course, not to mention compassion. It's a tough one. Do you understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
What else, people?
How does that I noticed this, well, it came into my thought when you were doing the prayer before the food, before we had lunch.
Yes.
And it's been a bit of a sticky one for me because of even vegetables
Yes.
living, or flowers are living.
I see.
Yeah.
No, I understand. Well, the Buddha's idea of a living being is one that possesses a consciousness that can reincarnate into other types of living beings. So the Buddha's view at one point. Second point, the Buddha's view would be that there's not an atom of space you won't find sentient beings, living beings, all kinds. I mean, our body's a walking zoo, pervaded by living beings. Flowers and plants are pervaded by living beings. But the Buddha's view would be these four elements here, called this flower, it's the same four elements as this, right? It's earth, air, fire, water. That's how they talk about matter made of the four elements. The difference would be this piece of four elements is not imbued with a consciousness like this piece of four elements is, or like an ant's four elements is. It hasn't got a consciousness. It's a living thing, there's no question, but it hasn't got a consciousness. And that's very, very different.
And so food is pretty much the same. So
food is
vegetables.
Yeah, it's just four elements. Yeah, but there are beings right in. And that's the point about when we become vegans and vegetarians. Still, you don't stop harming others. If you think of the sentient beings we slaughter, when you grow the rice, when you grow the veggies, when you drive the car, you can't avoid. But often, the fundamentalist vegans and vegetarians just don't care about them. They think, oh well, you can't help that one. They say. But it's just, you can't. Even if you're the purest person, even if you don't eat anything, you're still breathing in creatures. You can't avoid harming sentient beings, so we do our best not to harm. That's the main point. Do our best to attempt not to harm sentient beings, Do you understand? What else, people? Questions? Yes. Go.
Why is it so hard to practice concentration meditation? Like to just sit and meditate?
It is so hard because our minds are full of worries and fears and jobs and responsibilities and irritation and attachment and aversion and boring and distracted, because it's enormously hard to get it. It's enormously hard. So that's why we've got to know where we're at and know. So, okay, in the text they talk about how to be even qualified to even get to the mountains where you can do the serious work of sincerely getting concentration, which might take several years. Do you understand? To even get to that point, you're already a pretty highly realised person. You'd already have given up much attachment. You'd already given up much of the delusions and probably, and given up many of the ordinary things of daily life, so that your mind literally won't have so many things to be worried and thinking about. I mean, most of us have lives and bodies and food to get and jobs to do and people to take care of and dogs to feed and husbands to feed, right? So that's preoccupying most people's lives. So to be really qualified to even get to the mountains, so you can have the actual leisure and you already got to be a highly realised being, have given up so much attachment already, have no mortgages, no husbands, no children, no animals, no fears, have no attachment to any food, couldn't care whether you eat a carrot or a peanut. You already would have given up so much attachment and have done already so much practice of morality, of calming your body, speech and mind, of living in vows and subduing your body, speech and mind. Then you're qualified. But then the effort you have to make for a couple of years to do it, because the mind is so much inertia and there's so much kind of boredom with our mind. We can't stand more than a few minutes, The effort you need is absolutely stupendous, which just shows the berserkness of our ordinary mind. And then we're not talking about being Hitler or anything. So it's okay. So then we've got to do other practices, So there's different, so you've got to do lots. That's why the very first level of practice is practice morality. And at least if you live in your life in vows of not killing and not lying and not stealing, this is a stupendous way to live your life. Because not only now is it helping you subdue your body, speech and mind, because living in vows is so stupendous, and I'll talk about this,